Good day, everyone. Once again, we are here for our lessons in Practical Research 2. I hope that you are in good health and in good disposition this time as we go on with our Research 2 lessons. Last time, during our last video lesson, we had discussed inquiry, investigation, and research. And we also learned about qualitative and quantitative research, their characteristics, and we had also differentiated qualitative and quantitative research. To name a few of their differences, we have for qualitative research, recall, it is subjective, holistic, observational, and process-oriented. And for quantitative research, they are objective, specific, experimental, and outcome-oriented. There are some other differences which you have to remember. We also discussed on the strengths and weaknesses of quantitative research. Then, if you have remembered, we had a concept evaluation. Since nabitin tayo, so we still have another evaluation on inquiry and research understanding. So I have here a table. You are going to determine whether inquiry or research is applicable in a given situation. You are just going to check the corresponding column of your answer. So we have there 3 columns or 3 column headings. That is for situation, inquiry, and research. If it's an inquiry, you just check under inquiry. And if it's a research, just check on research. So number 1, a person wants to know the occupant of the condominium. Is it inquiry or research? Number 2, a student wants to know the medical effects of guava leaves. Is it an inquiry or research? Then number 3, Mr. Cruz wants to know the technique his electric fan function instantly. Number 4, Aling Rosa wants to know the decrease of her sale for the day. Then number 5, a business executive wants to find out which of these 2 marketing strategies, the free marketing and attractive packaging, could increase her sale. So you're just going to check whether they are inquiry or research. Okay? So you have evaluated yourself whether it's an inquiry or research. Okay. For this time, we are going to study or discuss the different types of quantitative research. Now, there are 4 main types of quantitative research. 1, we have descriptive research. For descriptive research, it seeks to describe the current status of an identified variable. Descriptive research is designed to provide systematic information about a phenomenon. Here, the researcher does not usually begin with a hypothesis, but likely to develop it one after collecting data. Then the analysis and synthesis of the data provide the test of hypothesis. Then there is a systematic collection of information that requires careful selection of the units studied and careful measurement of its variable. So that's a descriptive research. From the word describe, you are just going to describe the status of your identified variable. But still, this requires systematic information. When we say systematic information, you have to follow the scientific procedure in doing your descriptive research. So, that's the first type of quantitative research. Then we have here an example of a descriptive research. One, a description of a tobacco use habits of teenagers. You are going to describe here the habits of teenagers using tobacco. Number, a description of the kinds of physical activities that typically occur in nursing homes and how frequently it's occur. So another example here is we are going to describe the physical activity that occurs in the nursing homes and how frequently its activity occur. So you can also choose other activities, like for example in the school, in offices, and in some institutions. And that's an example of a descriptive research. Number 2, we have correlational research. Correlational. Now, this attempts to determine the extent of relationship between variables by using statistical data or numerical data. Correlational research shows and interprets the relationship between and among variables. Between variables, if you are using only two variables, and among variables, if you are using two or more variables. Correlational research also recognizes the trends and patterns in the data. Okay. The data relationships and distributions of variables are only the ones that are being studied. So only the relationships of one variable to the other variables are the ones that are being studied in a correlational research. Now take note that the variables in a correlational research are not manipulated. They are only identified and studied as it occurs in the natural setting. They are only identified, and studied as they occur in the natural setting. Then we have examples of correlational research. 1, the covariance of smoking and lung disease. So in this example, we have two variables here, smoking and lung disease. How does smoking affect lung disease? Or smoking cause lung disease? We are going to relate them. Okay? Number 2 is the relationship between diet and anxiety. So another two variables are being studied here. The relationship between diet and anxiety. Again, as I mentioned, there are two variables, diet and anxiety. So you may find out here how does diet affect the anxiety of an individual. Then number 3, we have the causal comparative or the quasi-experimental research. This attempts to establish cause-effect relationship among variables. Cause and effect relationship among variables. When we say cause, of course, yun ang kung ano ang sanhi at kung ano ang epekto ng isang variable to the other variable. Now, quasi-experimental research is similar to true experiments. Para siyang eksperimento, or it's really an experiment, wherein there is an independent variable that is not manipulated but identified. Now, later, we will be discussing what is an independent variable when we discuss variables. Then, causal comparative research. The effects of the independent variable on the dependent variable are measured. Ano ba ang effect ng independent variable to the dependent variable? So I'll give you an advanced information of what is an independent variable and what is the dependent variable. Simply, independent variable is the cause and the dependent variable is the effect. Tandaan nyo yan. Okay. Here, the researcher does not randomly assign groups but must use ones that are naturally formed or pre-existing group. So, hindi lang siya basta't pipili ng group in his research, but he must use the ones that are naturally formed or pre-existing group. When we say naturally formed, existing siya naturally. Alright. Then, causal comparative research identify control groups exposed to the treatment variable that are studied and compare groups who are not. So, i-compare dito yung setup that has a treatment variable or experimental at i-compare doon sa walang treatment. Yung tinatawag nating controlled variables. So again, that is causal, comparative, or quasi-experimental design. Then we have here example of causal, comparative, or quasi-experimental research. 1. The effect of online classes to students' performance. Again, we have two variables here, the online class and the students' performance. So, to give you what type of variables are mentioned here, the online class is the independent variable and the student's performance is the dependent variable. Kung ano yung effect ng online class sa student's performance. Another example is the effect of feeding program on students' attendance. Another variable here is the feeding program and students' attendance. So again, The independent variable is feeding program, and the dependent variable is the student's attendance. Okay. Next, we have experimental research. From the word experiment. Okay, this is often called true experimentation. This uses the scientific method to establish the cause and effect relationship among a group of variables that make up the study. Okay, a study where an effort is made to identify and impose control over all other variables except one. And an independent variable here is manipulated to determine the effects on the dependent variable. So that's the experimental research, or known as true experimentation. Again, that uses scientific method or process to establish the cause and effect relationship among the group of variables that make up the study. Okay? Then, the subjects here are randomly assigned experimental treatments rather than identified in a natural setting. So, magkaiba sila sa quasi-experimental research. Okay. Subjects are randomly assigned, while in the quasi-experimental, subjects are not randomly assigned, but they are based on the natural setting or natural setting that is occurring in the group. Right. The following are examples of experimental research. 1. The effect of new treatment plan on breast cancer. New treatment plan on breast cancer. Again, there are two variables here. The new treatment plan, whatever it is, on the breast cancer. Another is the effect of systematic preparation and support system on children who were scheduled for surgery on the amount of psychological upset and cooperation. So, to mention again the variables, you have the systematic preparation and support system on the psychological upset and cooperation. So again, those are the two variables here. Again, the variables here are not, or the variable here is manipulated. Okay? Then, to give you an overview of the comparison between quantitative and qualitative research, or the descriptive, correlational, experimental, and other types of research. So for descriptive research, the key focus on the control variables is observational. So when we say observational, you have to observe them in their natural setting or in their natural behavior, on their natural activities. Then, this describes the what is variable that are controlled. Ino-observe mo dito ang what is. Then, the variables here are controlled. Then, what are the intervention applied? There is no intervention applied on the descriptive research. Okay, in terms of common study design, what is the design of the descriptive research? Usually, it is comparative. Comparative. When we say comparative, you are just comparing. Then, it is cross-sectional design and longitudinal design. Descriptive design, you are just going to describe, but you are going to do this systematically. Okay, for correlational research, their key focus on controlled variables, they explores and observes relationships among variables. So if in the descriptive variables or in the descriptive research, the variables are controlled, in the correlational research, the variables are not controlled. All right. What is the intervention applied? No intervention applied on the correlational research. And what is the common study design? The common design that is used in the correlational research. It is descriptive correlational design or predictive designs. When we say predictive designs, predict, you are just going to predict the design as you go along with your research. Kasi sinabi dito na wala tayong fixed design dito in the correlational research. No fixed design except in the experimental. And model testing design. Model testing design. Another is causal, comparative, or quasi-experimental. Alright. Ano ang focus and their controlled variables? What is their focus? Meaning, ano yung pinufokusan nila for the causal, comparative, quasi-experimental? So, they focus on the test for causality with suboptimal variable control. Meaning, hindi siya masyado controlled. And independent variable is not manipulated. Not manipulated. Then, what is the intervention applied? Still, no intervention applied for causal, comparative, or quasi-experimental research design. Okay, what is the common study design for quasi-experimental? Anong design ang ginagamit nila? They can use pre- and post-test designs. Supposing you're studying the relationship of diet and anxiety. Alright, for the pre-test, you are going to measure first their anxiety before you implement their diet. That is pre- and post-test design. Then after giving them diet, we have also to test their anxiety. Did you get it? Pre- and post-test design. Ititest mo muna sila bago mo i-administer yung experiment mo or yung causal experimental research. Pre- and post-test designs. Sometimes you can also have post-test only design. Wala nang pre-test, post-test na lang. Then, another is interrupted time series. So, interrupted time series, meaning during the administration of your research, there are some interruptions. Okay, halimbawa may nagugutom. So, you have to give them food or give them their required meal for that particular group. So, that is interrupted time series. During the conduct of the experiment, there is an interruption. So that is the common study design for causal, comparative, or quasi-experimental. Again, kakanda ka muna na pwede kang mag-conduct ng pre- and post-test, pwedeng post-test lang, or pwedeng interrupted time series. Gagawa ka ng interruption during the conduct of your study or research. Intindihan? Okay. Next is the experimental research design. Alright, what is their focus and what are their controlled variables? So, experimental design is focused on test causality with optimum variable control. No? Test causality. Cause. Ititest mo yung cause with optimal variable control. Meaning, iko-control mo yung variable. You have a control variable. Then, in this type of research design, the independent variable is manipulated. Pwedeng i-add, pwedeng magdagdag, pwedeng magbawas, pwedeng i-increase, pwedeng i-decrease, or yes, that can be manipulated. That is what we mean by manipulated. You can add, you can decrease, pwede mong bawasan, pwede mong dagdagan. At ano ang intervention applied? There should be an intervention that should be applied in your experimental research. Then, what is the common study design? The classic experimental design or randomized design. Okay, is it clear now? The comparison of the different types of quantitative research. All right. So next, of course, after a discussion, we have a sort of evaluation. So, if you have any question, now let's make a diagram showing the different types of qualitative research design. Diagram. So, you have to make a diagram of the different qualitative research design. Okay? So, ano ngayon? You have the experimental, you have the descriptive, you have the causal, experimental, then the last one. No? You may use any shape or figures for representation, but make sure that your research design must contain keywords. When we say keywords, those are the words that basically describe that type of research design. You can use any shape or figures for your representation. Get it? Right. Next to that, we have, of course, the post-test, sorry. Okay, post-test tayo. If you have understood the different characteristics of a quantitative research and qualitative research. Instruction, tell whether the given word is a characteristic of qualitative and quantitative research. Write QL opposite the word. If the word is for qualitative research, and QN for quantitative research. 1, you have naturalistic. 2, experimental. 3, subjective. 4, objective. And number 5, control. Okay? You can write your answer in a yellow pad paper. Then next to that, this one is for you to write sentences regarding the strength and weaknesses of quantitative research. Strength, only one strength and one weakness of quantitative research. Then letter C, you have to enumerate the types of quantitative research. Very easy. Okay? So again, write your answers in a yellow pad paper, then submit that on October 8 together with your module. So, that's all for today. Good day and God bless us. Thank you very much for watching.